Hey everybody. Sorry. It's my fault. Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli here. Welcome to a brand new In the Shop. And I've got a great one for you today. I'm going to be talking about post-spawn bass fishing. Post-spawn bass fishing. When the bass are done spawning, when they're finished actively being on the beds, what are the best ways to catch them? And it's a great topic because it can get a little tricky during the post-spawn. And I'm going to be explaining to you two different types of fish to target during the post-spawn. Ones that stay shallow, and they're generally the males. Ones that stay around the bed, they're with their fry, they're still on the flats. That group of fish. But the second one is the better group to target, and that's how do you catch those bigger post-spawn females. We're going to be talking about how to catch both of those groups. The other thing I'm going to use today is a dry erase board to kind of give you an idea of these movements the fish make. So we're going to talk about areas and we're going to talk about baits. Let's start with that first group, and that is fish that stay shallow after the spawn. And again, think about that. It's mainly the males, because the male bass, they're the ones that are responsible for guarding the bed. Even after that fry hatches, the eggs hatch, the male has to stay with its fry for about 7 to 10 days. So those fish are going to stay shallow. And if you look here, we've got this really, I know I'm a great artist, thank you very much, this great illustration of a lake. And if you look, we've got your main lake is down here. This is that big water in the main lake. And then we have a shallow, protected cove or a pocket. Could be a creek, could be a little cut. They're the kind of places those fish are going to spawn. And those male bass, even after they're done actively guarding the beds, they're going to stay shallow. They're going to stay up in that actual creek, in that cove, in that protected area. The thing they're going to move to is the first available cover in that cove. So in this cove, we might have lily pads. We might have a lay-down tree that comes off the bank. We might have a dock that sits in that shallow cove. And they're going to go to those cover areas because if they're protecting fry, that fry likes shade. That fry likes to go to areas where there's a canopy. There's some kind of overhead. And even if they're not guarding fry, those males will go to that shallow cover to recoup and feed. You know, for those male fish, I'm going to give you two of my favorite techniques to catch post-spawn, those post-spawn fish. The first one, and this is a killer, is an old school floating worm. That floating worm, especially in, I call them bright shock colors, methylate, orange, pink, white. That's a great tool during the spawn, but it's an even better tool in the post-spawn. You know, the main thing, I'll show you just the basics of the rig, is I use an oversized barrel swivel. A silver or black oversized barrel swivel. Anywhere from 8 to about 12 or 14 inches of a fluorocarbon leader. You can use 8 to about 15-pound tests. And then I go to a 3 or a 4/0 offset hook, depending on the size of the worm. This is a VMC regular offset. It's a 4/0, it's like approved hook. And the main thing when you're fishing a floating worm, and I want you to watch how I rig this, is when you rig it, do your normal Texas rig, but instead of leaving the bait straight, look at this. You purposely want to put a big kink in the worm. you want to put a big kink. Look at that kink. I didn't rig it straight. It's got a kink in it. And the reason is when I twitch this around that cover, the isolated logs, the laydowns, the docks, the lily pads, this worm's going to have an erratic twitch to it and almost a roll to it as you twitch it. Post-spawn bass, those males, they can't take it. Number 2, and this is one for me that's been a post-spawn sleeper for 20 years for me. And this is a French fry. This is a really cool bait. This is a Berkeley power bait lugworm. And I'm going to fish this around these same areas. Logs, lily pads, docks, any form of cover back in those shallow spawning coves. I always want to rig it flat side down. So most French fries have a flat side, like this lugworm. I want to use a light or medium wire hook. Don't overpower it with the hook. This is a 2-aught VMC Finesse Nico hook. You could also use a 1 or a 2-aught light wire offset. And then last but not least, I get a nail. This happens to be a VMC nail weight. And I just stick it in the blunt end of that French fry. You can see that nail gone in. So it's a tail-weighted French fry. And the interesting thing about this French fry, the great thing for these post-spawn fish, is that it glides backwards. There's no weight in the front. All the weight's in the back with that nail. So when you lift your rod and let it fall, it actually glides backwards. Especially for fish, those post-spawn males guarding their fry, they cannot take it. When that bait comes back at their face and they're guarding their fry, you're going to catch that male. Okay? So first, post-spawn pattern, stay in the areas where they spawn. That shallower protected water, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 feet, but fish around the cover. And once again, they're mainly going to be male bass. But now I want to get into where to target those bigger post-spawn females. And this is key because these are the big ones. These are the 3, 4, 5, 6 pound fish that are recouping. They're recovering after the spawn. And if you look at this drawing, you see that spawning pocket in the cove. And those fish are going to head toward deeper water. They're going to head toward the main lake. So they're going out that way. They're heading back out. And almost all the time, coming out of that shallow pocket, you're going to have 2 things that are so key to catching these big post-spawn females. The one is you're going to have secondary points. Secondary points. I get a lot of questions. What is a secondary point? Here they go right here. Look at them. There's 2 of them that are real obvious. Look at this point right here on my left, and you can see this point sticks out. And underwater, most of the time, there's actually a little underwater point associated with that point of land. Here's another one, a little further out toward the main lake. Same thing. These are, here's number 1, here's number 2. These are both very typical of secondary points coming out of the spawning pockets. That's the first critical thing. The second critical thing is a lot of times there's a ditch, a depression, or just a little deeper water, a little drop-off associated with this route coming out. So let's just imagine there's a little creek channel that flows out of here, and it happens to bend near both those points. There it goes. It breaks out into that deeper water. So as you get out of that spawning cove, it gets a little deeper, 3 to 5, maybe 5 to 10, and then finally you get out into the main lake, and it's the deepest water available. But those secondary points that are near that deeper water, that ditch or that little drop-off, it's got to be a little deeper. That's the areas. These are the areas where those big post-spawn females are going to stop and recover before heading to their summertime pattern. Just like I gave you 2 for those post-spawn males, I'm going to give you 2 for the post-spawn females. And it's one of my favorite times of the year and one of my favorite ways to catch them on those secondary points is on a topwater. A topwater. When you say topwater, and you're saying post-spawn. It's post-spawn time. And I use 2 kinds. I use a walking bait. They call them topwater stick baits. This is a Rapala Skitter V. It's a great bait. And this is the big one. So I like to carry some big topwaters. This thing will walk the dog back and forth. It's going to cover a lot of water around those secondary points. And post-spawn fish like to feed up. Those big females like to eat up. So even if it's sunny, if it's cloudy, great. If it's a light drizzle, perfect. But even when it's sunny during this post-spawn period, a big walking topwater. Or my second one is there are times when there's a little more wind, a little more chop, or if you really want to slow your presentation down, if they're missing that walking bait, a popper can be great on these same secondary points. Once again, rain, clouds, a little windier, great for a popper. Even slick, calm conditions, try that popper. This is a Rapala Skitter pop. So a topwater on those secondary points for those big post-spawn females. But here is my main weapon in the post-spawn, and it's a crankbait. I carry all of them from a DT6 all the way to a DT20, and I like to feel around with the crankbait on these points. And somewhere on these secondary points, there's going to be a really key spot, a stump, a little shell bed, a clump of weeds, and you can find it and deflect off of it with that crankbait very, very effectively. The main thing when you're picking crankbaits is pick a crankbait that runs as deep or a little deeper than the depth of those secondary points. So if those secondary points are in 8 to 10 feet of water, a DT10 is perfect. If that other main lake secondary point is in 14, 15 feet of water, a DT14. Make sure it touches the bottom. That's so key. Feel around those secondary points. Fish that topwater. That's how you're going to catch the biggest bass during the post-spawn period. I hope this helped you. Post-spawn period can be frustrating, but it also can be one of the best times to catch a bass of a lifetime. It's also a great time to catch them in numbers, especially out on those secondary points. Listen to me. If you liked what you're seeing, if you like these in the shop videos, take a second, hit the subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, do me a favor. Tell your fishing buddy about the in the shops on the Mike Iaconelli Fishing channel. We got a lot more coming to you. Good luck and good fishing.